Welcome to the Catbird Quilts. I'm Kathy Martin. Tomorrow, September 21st, 2024, is National Sew a Jelly Roll Day. And sadly, I work tomorrow, so I'm getting a jump on it today. And since I've never sewn a jelly roll quilt before, I'm guessing I'm going to have a lot to say about it. So stay with me. So my previous video was about making my own jelly roll from my fabric and shirt stash. And I had an array of fabrics. And in that video, I mentioned that it would depend which kind of pattern I chose, which fabrics I would use. As the week progressed, I settled on the quilt pattern Tangled by Cluck Cluck Sew. I have a hard time with that phrase, Cluck Cluck Sew. As I mentioned in that video, the quilt pattern Tangled has a lot of background fabric in it. And so it won't require any of the light values that I had in that fabric pull. So I didn't just do it theoretically. I pulled the fabrics, cut them into 2.5-inch strips, sewed them to make them with the fabric for the ones that came from shirts, and rolled it up and tied it with the bow. Let's open up my jelly roll and I want to show you what I ended up choosing. And then after that, I'm actually just going to start my jelly roll friendly quilt pattern. It's so funny because I'm excited like I don't know what fabrics are in. I just made this. Like I literally just cut and sewed and pressed and trimmed this whole jelly roll. All right, so here are the fabrics. I am very renegade from the standpoint of I will use almost any fabric type. So this first one is linen, not linen. My mouth just naturally says linen. It's flannel. It's not linen. So this is flannel yardage that a viewer and patron sent me. This is a shirt that's actually a very thick cotton shirt, but it almost feels like flannel. This was from a fat quarter that I purchased thinking I would use it for my daughter's graduation quilt, the oldest daughter, and ended up not using it. And then we go into the reds. This is a shirt, very thick twill shirt. This is another red shirt, also very thick twill shirt. It's going to make a great fall quilt because it's going to be so solid and durable. In the previous video, I used a red fabric that had little white flowers over it, and I loved it, but it felt a little out of season. The combination of the flowers, plus there was a lot of white in it, and I thought it was going to read kind of pink. And so I went with this polka dot, which is still going to read a very light red from a distance, but I felt like it just worked better. Here's that auburn shirt that I had. This is some cutoffs from a quilt that I made. This is Spotted by Zen Chic. Here's the linen. I knew there was some in there. And I actually really debated about using this fabric, but because it's linen and because it's almost too vibrant next to this one that I've got right here, but I kept it in the end. I think the actual color of this was a Ruby and Bee Wyndham fabric that I think is called Pumpkin. The French's Mustard made it in the final iteration. Spatial relations is not my gift. I grossly misjudged how these were going to fit on my table, so I had to adjust. Moving on past our French's Mustard, which I call French's Hot Dog Mustard. This is a flannel, and you'll notice I'm a little bit short on the flannel. I think I have some more of that in my stash. We're going to roll with it for now. Here's the kind of yellow-green Tattersall shirt. This is the one that I Everyone was like, it's mustard, it's Dijon mustard, it's brown mustard. And it is. It's all of those things. Yellow ochre is also one of the names. I still am not going to have enough space. Paul is behind the camera telling me that I need to overlap these, and I'm so hard-headed that I'm not listening. And so now we're out of space again. So let me actually do that now. Okay. Maybe that'll work. All right, here's the green plaid shirt that kind of started it all. And then this is the green that I said was almost army green. I actually added in another dark green. I felt like the jump between this army-ish green and this very, very dark green was too much. So I found this one in my stash. Initially, I thought it might be a little too blue, but again, I thought through the trees in Alabama and they are every green there is. So we're going to roll with it. And ta-da! Here is my autumn colorway for my jelly roll. I seriously have never sewn with a jelly roll. I've used jelly roll strips in binding, but I've never made a jelly roll quilt. I had a moment as I was considering National Sew a Jelly Roll Day, and maybe you've had this thought, I don't want to do a jelly roll race. I don't want to race. I don't need competition or speed in my quilting. Quilting is my therapy, and I want to enjoy the process, just like I enjoyed cutting these strips and sewing them together and pressing them and then rolling them up and tying them with the ribbon. I want to make a quilt that I think I'll love, and it just so happens that it's jelly roll friendly, which parlays nicely into National Sew a Jelly Roll Day. So if you're considering whether you want to participate in this holiday, let me just encourage you. You do not have to do a jelly roll race. You don't have to rush. You don't have to do the whole quilt top in one day. I mean, how often do I say it? Quilting is slow. And this particular pattern that I picked, Tangled, is a block-based quilt pattern, which is great for me because I can make a block and go, oh. And then I can make another block. You may notice my design wall is blank, and it's because I'm hoping to at least get some of these blocks made, and I'll throw them up on the wall behind me, and maybe we can start to see it form before the video is done. So now I'm going to go cut the actual pieces. For once in my life, my quilting life, I will not be using a big old shirt back. So I'll actually be able to follow the cutting guide and just cut my strips. Normally I have to work backwards. So if I need 84 2.5-inch squares, I just have to figure out how to do that from a shirt. But this time, I just get to cut my strips. Normally, when I am getting ready to cut pieces for a new quilt, well, first of all, I usually just cut block by block. I don't cut all of my pieces all at once because I don't usually have the convenience of it being in strips. So it occurred to me just as I was getting ready to do this, oh, I'll be able to cut multiple strips at a time. And I never cut multiple shirts at a time because that would be foolish because they're not the same size. So first thing I'm going to do is actually change my blade. I don't know if you guys do this, but I have noticed that when I change my blade, I have a lot of gunk that gets down in here, especially if I'm using linen and now flannel. So it just leaves a lot of detritus. All right, so I'm just going to start from the top, and I have my pattern printed out because I didn't want to have my laptop. I also just made myself a cutting guide, which I taped to my wall. So this is wild. I have never done this way and done like multiple layers of fabric. So I'm just going to start with 2, lest I jack it up badly and then get mad because I've ruined my perfectly good jelly roll that I made. I've seen people cut like 8 layers of fabric, and it always gives me anxiety. Always gives me anxiety. Like, no, it may not be lined up right. And now I'm having anxiety over lining my fabric up right. And it's just 2 layers. Bless my bones. Ooh, I love a new blade so much. So I think it's just this step feels so weird to me because I'm normally working backward from the, like, how many pieces do I need versus cut 5 of these strips from these perfectly cut strips. And in the pattern, it says there are going to be some leftover. So we'll see how much leftover we're going to have. Maybe one day, and by ever I mean one day, do like 8 layers of fabric at once, but gosh, that just stresses me out. Okay, so I've got to do 5 of these. The downside to making your own jelly roll is, especially from shirts, is because they're seamed, it can definitely have that situation that I just had, which is where if the seam falls in the wrong place, then that doesn't work. And additionally, if I do more than one, like I'm doing right now, cutting at a time, I can't see where the seams are. The beauty of having a pre-cut with the fabric is it doesn't have a seam in it. And it probably is maybe a smidge straighter. One would hope a little bit straighter than what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to keep on with this until I'm done. Obviously, I'm mostly getting the hang of it. I'll probably do 4 layers of fabric moving forward. So all my pieces are cut, and as I said, what I expected was in fact true. It was so much easier to cut the pieces from the jelly roll strips rather than usual, which is I have to work backwards. So if I need 84 2.5-inch squares, then I do that basically shirt by shirt. So this time it was like, wait, all I have to do is cut 5, 4.5, just like mind boggling. If I had chosen yardage for my background fabric, it would have been even easier. But no, I have to use thrifted pillowcases and remnant fabric and a bunch of other stuff. So I took the time to pin before I sat down because I'm going to just chain piece like every piece. And I didn't want to have to, every time I went to the next piece, like line it up. So now I'm going to just sew, and then press them all. So to remove any doubt, I've put my block arrangement and pressing directions next to my ironing board. And now I just get to sew, which is one of my favorite parts. I took the time to print out the block layout, and it has pressing directions, and I have pinned that up on my design wall next to my ironing board because I'm notorious for not remembering which way to press. Like literally will press 30 pieces the same direction and then go, wait, what direction am I supposed to be pressing? because I needed some immediate gratification. I isolated just the green blocks and sewed those pieces together, and I'm about to sew the green blocks together. And this will just have to get done later. This will be over the next few days. And that's the beauty of quilting. I don't have to do it all at one time. I don't have to put a whole quilt top together in one day, even if it is National Sew a Jelly Roll Day. So I'm going to sew my green blocks and my one scrappy block, which I'm actually super excited about that. And then I'll press them all the green ones, and then I'll have the juice to keep going. So this is one of my favorite parts, is when I've got all my pieces and now I have my rows together. And you never really exactly know, like you can have an idea of how it's gonna look, and then you press those pieces back and it's like, and so that is exactly what I'm having right now. So I folded this first one back and was like, oh, look at that. And so that is what I'm doing. And so it's like all of a sudden it was just these pieces, and then it was these rows, and now it's these very cool blocks, or I think they're very cool. And I'm really eager to see what the plaid one is going to look like. In fact, I might skip over the next one and pull the plaid one, because it's that, is this going to look really weird and janky because it's these plaids butting up against each other, or is it going to be really, really cool? And my suspicion is that it's going to be really cool. So we're about to find out. So I'm setting my seams first, just to get kind of everything going in the direction that it was sewn. And the beauty of this particular block is this last press is out. So I just turn it over and kind of fan my fingers out, and it's ready for pressing. So this is a complex plaid. If I had wanted to match it up, I'm not sure I could have, even if I had tried. And I typically like for plaids to match, but I don't think it's needed. I think it just looks really cool, actually. This bugs me just a little bit, but not enough to be concerned about it. And this is where whoever had if you can't see it from a galloping horse, whoever said that was probably right. I actually think it gives some visual interest that it doesn't match up. Now, if it had matched perfectly, this like crossing thing would look really like, ooh, how did they do that? Which, I like that too. But I really think it just looks cool. Okay, so this is the scrappy block. So the way the pattern is written, there are extra pieces, and then every so often along the way, there's one that's scrappy. I was especially excited about this because these fall colors, I'm really hoping they're all going to come together and look great mixed up in the same block together. So we're about to find out if if that's going to be true. So I don't know about the rest of that block, but I'm already like, ooh, ooh. And this is where using my daughter that I call the colorist, using her wisdom of if it works in a gradient, it will work when it's all mixed in together. And I think she might be right. Well, that is very cool. It'll be interesting to see how that looks in the greater context of the quilt top. But anyway, so I'm going to keep trucking and do the rest of my green blocks pressing. And then I'll get to go do the rest. So here are my first there's 4 behind me. So 8 green blocks and 1 scrappy for my Tangled quilt pattern. It did exactly what I wanted it to do, was give me the juice to keep making more blocks. So stay tuned. I'm sure this will probably show up in another video later, but this has been my first adventure in National Sew a Jelly Roll Day. What fun! It's been really enjoyable. So if you're going to sew a jelly roll for National Sew a Jelly Roll Day on September 21st, good luck and best wishes, and I hope you have so much fun, and I hope you don't feel like you have to do it all in one go. You can just do it at your own pace and enjoy it. And if you're not sewing a jelly roll, kudos to you. Because guess what? Just because everybody's doing it doesn't mean you need to do it too. I'm Kathy Martin. This is the Catbird Quilts. Thanks so much for watching.